Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. New week, new theme. We're going to be checking out bands with long names. No shorter than 20 characters in a band name. We're kicking it off with Wolves in the Throne Room. The track we're looking at comes from the Thrice Woven album. The song is Born from the Serpent's Eye. Let's dive into it and see what they're bringing to the table today. It's a really awkward repetition of that lick. The ending just doesn't really loop back to the beginning in a way that's pleasing. Oh no, they're getting serious now. I don't know why that's what I thought. So using the same riff with the older drum pattern. Nice use of variation there. This is much appreciated. The little triangle in the background is a good touch on all this. Oh, it's pitch though. That's not a triangle. Those are just very tinny bells. The tremolo picking works really well at creating that atmosphere. Just that static sound that sits underneath all of it. This build-up is kind of nice, but I fear that we're going to build up into just more of that traditional black metal sounds, and that we're going to peak on that, which isn't, to me, that's not really a peak. That's why I'm a little afraid of that's how it's going. I do like the cymbal work here, though. This is really nice. Interesting to hear the different phonetic sounds coming out of the vocalists. When I think of vocal harmonies, especially like that, where there doesn't seem to be words attributed to it, and it's just vowel sounds. Well, at least I'm not going to speak for anyone else. More of a royal you, I suppose I was going to say there, but I typically associate that and have expectations of everybody in line on the same vowel sounds. And it was very interesting to hear Oz. Was it an O or an oo? I don't remember. And then also off on the right, we had a very a very tinny sounds. We had this vowel layering, and I thought was a pretty cool addition to that section. Um, the whole ending, though, is interesting to me. Primarily because I don't really think much of the music after the 4.5 minute mark added much to the song. We had the choir, the three clean vocalists that led us into the metal again. The metal had a little bit of a slow burn process, and then that crossfaded into the choir again. Um, and musically, it just, to me, it didn't really feel like it added anything to the core part of the song that took up the first half of the track. I'm curious if there's anything in the lyrics that might point towards that. And, that might be a weird thing to say too, because if you ask me what my favorite part of this track was, it's going to be the back half. So the part where it was the least black metal. But it also feels like an odd extension to a song that I felt was wrapped up rather nicely. There is that point around the 4.5 minute mark where everything kind of cuts out and we have those bells coming in. And I thought to myself, it'd be kind of nice if the song was over now. Part joking because, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of that black metal sound that took up a majority of the first half of this track. But it also feels complete. It feels like a proper place to stop the song. And it almost feels like we moved into a completely different movement in the back half that honestly wasn't really connected to the first half at all. I find very, very little through line between any of it. And so, it's not necessarily that I'm saying that the song is bad or that they were wrong to do this or that the back half should have been another track or anything like that. Just off of a first time listen, without knowing the lyrics, without having any extra information about this band, really. I think this is only the second or third song we've heard from them, and I don't know anything about the album. I find it's a really interesting decision to continue the song at that point, especially after having pretty much found a good place to stop and almost hit near silence even. I think that's my first major thought about this track. So I do want to split this up in two sections though, the first half and the second half. Let's explore the first half. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's black metal. It is that stereotypical third wave 16th notes coming out of our drums and guitars. It uses a lot of dyad work, has sometimes some interesting chordal ideas. For the most part, it just sounds like metal to me though. It is very aggressive, very repetitive. It drives me bonkers, man. I don't. I'm really glad the song changed because there is a cynical part of me. Alright, listen, alright. So I'm a millennial, okay? If I had a little bit less self awareness growing up, I probably would have worn a shirt that said something along the lines of sarcasm is my second language or something like that, right? So I had a lot of sarcastic thoughts while listening to this, and maybe that surprises people. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of sarcastic in the Discord community where I'm a little bit more myself, I suppose. Not to say that I wear a mask for the channel, but I have a specific element of my thoughts and myself and my opinions that I present on the channel. Me being up here, being snarky, cracking jokes about music, I don't really think that's something that I want to do particularly all the time. And I think I enjoy primarily focusing on music and being serious about it and giving it the weight that I think the art deserves, especially in metal, which tends to either be, yeah, metal's cool, bro, don't think about it, or, hey, that's just that noisy, screamy stuff, right? I think that there's an area that metal should be taken seriously, and I think I can provide that area. but I do have a lot of sarcasm. I'm a very sarcastic person. Um, and so I'm listening to this and I'm just thinking, I'm like, why do y'all keep throwing this my way? I have nothing more to say about stereotypical third wave black metal. I feel like I repeat myself on every single one of these. So like I said, I'm really glad that the song changes and we go into explore something very different in the back half. And I do have some cool things I want to talk about with that. But when it comes to the first 4 minutes, I don't really feel like I have any thoughts worthwhile, worth bringing up, worth wasting your time on. If you're watching this video, you're probably somebody who's watched one of my other black metal videos, which means you've already heard all these words before. They're playing 16th notes. There's a lot of compression. It's mid-5 production that I'm not a huge fan of, but I suppose it works for what they're doing. There's, the fuzziness that surrounds everything. There's a lot of drum aggression, and the vocals just sound like goblin sounds. I can't make heads or tails of them. I don't hear syllables. It's just a very noisy genre for me, and 4 years later, and probably hundreds of attempts, hundreds of moments of exposition, I've been exposed to this genre, this specific era of this genre, probably hundreds of times. I don't know that I'm getting anything else out of it, and I don't know that I'm improving anybody else's understanding of any music that makes sounds like this. However, Wolves in the Throne Room do something else as well. And that's the back half of this track. Also, can I just mention this real quick? Every single time we get Wolves in the Throne Room, I think they're a metalcore band. Am I thinking of somebody else? Does another band share that name? Because I feel like every single time I start one of these tracks and we get into something blackened, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a black metal group. And I had that same realization here. And I don't know why it never clicks. I always think we're getting new metal. Or alternative metal, maybe. Or metalcore. Anything in that like more popular metal area where it's like it has metal sounds to it, but it's generally a lot poppier and has a much wider appeal to people than, say, more streamlined metal like heavy metal or death metal. Metal is also kind of a weird word. It's starting to sound awkward. Metal. That's not a real word. That can't be a real word. Okay. The back half of this track, though. The band levels up. They move from writing dyads to triads. We now have 3 notes in chords. These chords are also pretty cool. They explore some of the same ideas, and we do stick with smaller concepts. As far as progression goes, we saw at the end of the track we were bouncing back and forth between 2 chords. That's what we saw predominantly at the beginning of the song as well. Here, though, we're working with 4 chord progressions. Although what's cool is that when we introduce one of the more melodic elements in this vocal harmony stuff going on here, it does introduce what feels like more chordal work, even though we're just getting some melodies that are introducing notes on top of dyads that we hadn't heard those combinations before, but they're still working within the same chord progressions. This whole section is gorgeous. I love the little bells chime thing that's going on in the background. I thought it was a triangle at first, but then it sounded pitched, and now I just realized they probably could have different sized triangles to get different pitches out of them. That sounds very irregular for even an orchestra. Usually you just have a triangle. The pitch doesn't really matter as much as the sound. But, it'd be kind of stranger for a metal band to have it. But if any style of metal is going to do something awkward, it's either going to be the avant-garde stuff or black metal. I feel like those are the 2 most adventurous types of areas of metal. So yeah, maybe they do have different sized triangles to get different pitched triangle sounds. Or maybe they're just a type of bell I'm not familiar with. Maybe it's all digital. That's a possibility too, I suppose. Anyways, I just really like that sound. I think it sounds great. Nice little twinkling. It's sharp. It cuts through the wide, large sound that the vocals are bringing to. It all just works and creates this this moment of relief, almost punching through all of that anxiety that the black metal presented. It moves to a bit of silence, which is like a blackness that is just taken over, and then this twinkling little light stuff, and then this really warm, resonant chordal work coming from the choir. It's just a really great picture. I love that whole transition there. That was really cool. And then from here, we move into a slow burn section. Not something I was expecting. A bit slower tempo-wise. We have snare accents on 1 and 3. Don't know how I still remember that. So that allows it to feel like it's driving quite a bit. We got that forward momentum. The guitars come in. We have some tremolo picking on our right pan guitar. It gives us this nice fuzzy floor bed to build everything off of. We have the quicker moving melody line from our left guitar. However, that guitar is it's playing slower melodies. It's still 16th notes if I remember right, but it was like 4 hits per note. So if we were just to change it so that we only pick when we change notes, we're basically working with quarter notes here. Slower moving melody, as I said. The drums have kind of reined it in a little bit. However, we have some beautiful cymbal work here. I love the dynamic work that goes into this. When you listen to those cymbals, it's not just about the different timbres, the different ways that they shimmer and resonate and vibrate, but it's also about volume. He hits the cymbals with different intensity and pressure, and well, it creates different volume, right? You hit it harder, it's louder. But it's not always the same. It's not like every time he hits the crash, it's the same volume. He creates these accent points within it, and it almost makes the cymbal work feel like melodic drumming on top of the metronomic snare and bass work. It is masterfully executed and is a fantastic addition to a section that is already working towards this dark beauty. We do have some synth work, I think, on the low end, helping the fuzzy guitar create more of this foundation. We hear more of this when we crossfade out to the end, and it becomes a bit more present alongside the choir. It is present here, though. I wasn't 100% sure about it, but when it isolated it at the end, I was like, okay, yeah, that was probably what I was hearing. And then we have a little bit of the growling here. We add a couple layers as far as, I think, synth work. We change up the guitar work a little bit, and then we crossfade it out. The crossfade's kind of nice. I do think that it drags the song out just a little bit, but I do like the ending sound of just that low synth pad with the choir on top of it. I thought that was a fantastic atmosphere. And this whole section, I think, worked really well at being awesome. It's kind of a rule of cool atmosphere thing. I don't really think I hear a story too much in it. I just really enjoyed what they were doing and where they were taking me. It's like watching some cool animation, you know? Like watching a cool animated choreographed fight scene. I don't even really care if there was a story. I just enjoyed what they were doing with the textures they were making. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff there. Is Wolves in the Throne Room the black metal group that uses synthesizers to do string work? I can't remember. A long time ago, we listened to a black metal track, and I said, yo, I hear strings behind this. And I took like a segment of it, like 2 minutes or something, minute and a half, and I put some strings behind it, and then I uploaded it to my BandLab page. And I remember I got a comment on it. It said, hey, no, I got a comment that said, hey, this is just like this band. And I can't remember if Wolves in the Throne Room was the band that I put strings behind, or the band that my work, my additional work to that song was compared to. I don't know. Wolves in the Throne Room, man. I have a lot of vague ideas associated with them, and apparently none of them can be right. Let me look up some lyrics, see what's going on there, and then we're going to wrap this video up. Okay, first of all, looks like the clean vocalist is Anna von Hauswolf, and that's not a name I was expecting to read today. So that's kind of cool. Nothing in here said it was featuring her, so That's wild because Spotify is kind of ridiculously anal about making sure that featuring vocalist is like in every song, or at least in the artist name. So I wager that Spotify isn't big enough to double check every single track that they stream on their platform. So it's probably up to the record label or the band to disclose that information. But I kind of find it interesting that it isn't present here at all. I had no idea. I didn't figure that it was somebody within the band because black metal and clean vocals, nobody does that. Hyperbole. Okay, there are bands, of course. But I just kind of figured it would have been just some vocalist, not a big name like Anna von Hostwolf. Very interesting. Um, I don't know what the song's about though. It's vaguely written. All right, there's something about war. It says, lend me your falcon skin, sky traveler. Eyes turned upwards, red eggs spill. I'm not quite sure what that's about. It almost feels as if he's asking for this falcon's insight into things. You can see from the sky, because after this part, we start describing a bunch of stuff on the horizon. It says, warship circle, copper shields, Bedek, across the green meadows, over the river, teeming with spears to the lake of stone, where nothing lives and nothing grows. From here we go to the bridge, which is the choir. It translates to, the sand is slipping from my hand. I take a breath, look at that star, look at that light, look at my heart, cold and dark. It seems like somebody is on the verge of death. And verse 2 starts with the phrase, noose tightens, hammer falls, thunderheads mount the shore, drenched twin rivers born from the serpent's eye. I don't know what it all means, but I do get this element that our narrator is on the verge of death. They see war on the horizon, and that's kind of it. It's a series of short ideas, not necessarily a word salad, but something close to stream of consciousness, possibly. No thought ever gets a full, concise idea out of it. We just get these glimmers, these little flickers of ideas that are all interconnected somehow, sure, but all abruptly cut short ideas. I don't see how any of this ties back to the music, but maybe that's just because I don't have as strong of an understanding about what's happening lyrically either. So, those are my thoughts. Wolves in the Throne Room, born from the Serpent's Eye. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Also, if you just have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspectives about this track, toss all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of long band names. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.